Work followed me home. They wouldn't let me. They see me. I was known for having what they wanted. It didn't matter who you were with. You could be with your mother, your pastor, your sister. It could be with anybody. They know me for having that one particular thing, and they have no no morals. So they just gonna be like, hey, you got it. I'm not doing nothing right now. So they followed me home. They whistled at my window, and some even had the nerve to knock on the door. So it wasn't long before my mother figured out what it was I was doing.
Welcome to the Prodigals Build podcast. Today's guest is Curtis Weathers. Curtis grew up in the 70s on the east side of Detroit. He recalls the hard times that his mother faced raising 9 kids and swore that poverty would never be a part of his future. His stepfather taught him everything from gardening to fixing cars and houses. But Curt was different. No toys and games for him. He was a hustler at a very young age, but something happened to him at 16 that changed his whole trajectory. It's not at all what you would think. Watch and listen to Prodigals Build Episode 1. Prison can't break a millionaire mindset. Without further ado, let's start the interview. Welcome, Curtis. I said just a wee bit about you, but your story is phenomenal. So can you just go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone?
How you doing? Thanks for having me. My name is Curt Weathers. Grew up on the east side of Detroit in the Chalmers Mac area. It was pretty interesting experience. Back then, it wasn't as much crime because we wasn't focused on what crime was as kids. So the city was always a sports city, a restaurant city, and those type of things kind of wasn't important to me at that time as a kid. So I was really just a son going to school on the east side. I was really ambitious on making things different than what I grew up looking at, which was poverty. So I think fast forwarding to the 80s, maybe 83 or 84, my grandmother, which is my mother's mother, was shot and killed. So she took in her youngest brother, which was a year or two older than me, and her youngest sister, which was a year younger than me, or maybe 2 years younger than me. So it ended up being 6 girls and 3 boys. So 9 kids my mother raised.
Oh, wow. Bless your mother. Like, when did you kind of get on that other path?
Okay, that's interesting. I think I may have told this story maybe a handful of times in my life. So you know that I worked both of those jobs, religious, and I had a check stub. So, you know, with a check stub comes filing income tax at the end of the year. So as ambitious as I was, I went to work, got up every day. I ended up having a son at 16. I had my very first child at 16. So I'm still working. I believe I was working at Elias Brother still. So came time for me to file for my income tax. And I filed it. And I had been walking and riding bikes to work all this time, this whole year, up until it was income tax time. So I think I had like $1,000 coming back when I filed it. I had already planned to buy me a car with this $1,000. I was excited about it. So I went to get my check, and the tax preparer turned the computer around and told me that I ain't had nothing coming back because child support took it. Yeah. Think about that. I think I was 16 or 17. So I understand what, why. So, you know, I think that was the very first time I might have shed a tear. So I walked home sad as a puppy. And I just was angry. I didn't want to go back to work. I didn't want to work no more. I just wasn't going to let nobody take nothing that I work hard for. So I think I stopped going to work. I really believe I did. Mm. And I got into a dice game. One day I was walking to the store and I seen these older guys and they were shooting dice. And I used to always stand around and watch. I never played, but I stood around and watched. And I think maybe the fourth or fifth time I came, after I learned the game from watching, on my way back from the store, I had a couple dollars, so I got in the dice game. And I think I ended up winning $100 or $150. And I was like, how can I make this $150? $300. So I went back and I stood and I watched. Like I said, when I see it, I can do it. And I stood out and I befriended everybody that was on the corner. And you already know that they were out there doing what was wrong. So I watched and I asked questions and they told me. And I was like, well, what this $150 get me? And they told me it'll get you this. And I was like, will it make me $300? They said, yeah. So I spent the $150 on it and that's how it started. It was fast, it was easy, and it was demeaning to say the least. I seen some of the worst and some of the best standing out on the corner. I mean, I made it my job, and I'm always going to do the very best I can at a job that I do. So I made that my job. I got up early in the morning. I'm talking about 0 below weather, and I layered up, and I stood on the corner, and I sold drugs from sun up to sundown. And it was all about getting as much as I could, no matter what. And I did that all the way until I was able to buy 1 car, 2 cars, 3 cars, and eventually move out of my mother's house. I think I moved out maybe a year after the very first time I bought. The very first time I won the money in the dice game, it took me a year to get enough to move out. So I moved out at 17. And the reason I moved out is because work followed me home. So as
yeah. I said, I bet.
Work followed me home. They wouldn't let me, they see me. I was known for having what they wanted. It didn't matter who you were with. You could be with your mother, your pastor, your sister. It could be with anybody. They know me for having that one particular thing, and they have no morals. So they just going to be like, hey, you got it. I'm not doing nothing right now. So they followed me home. They whistled at my window, and some even had the nerve to knock on the door. So it wasn't long before my mother figured out what it was I was doing.
I'm going to ask you what Mama was saying.
Yeah. I bought groceries. I did everything that I thought would make her turn her eye on it. She knew. She accepted some of the things, but it got out of control. And she was like, you can't live here and do that. It got to a point where I was accumulating so much stuff. I was hiding it. I put a lock on my door, and she was like, no, we don't lock doors around here. So she took the lock off, and every time I left, I guess she was in there looking. So she realized, yeah, you can't do that here. You got too many sisters and brothers. You're putting everybody in danger. So I had a friend that had a house on 7 Mile in Lappin, Gratiot in 7 Mile, and he had an upstairs flat. And I rented it from him. And I furnished the whole house before I even moved out. So one day, I just pulled up with a U-Haul, and I got the rest of my stuff. And she followed me from my room to the U-Haul. And she's like, you don't want to leave like that. Where you going? But I had already had the house, and I had already furnished it, and it was ready for me to just be there. Mm-hmm. So I'd never been back home since.
Yeah. So were you working alone? Did you have people working with you at this point?
So it came a time where I couldn't be there every single second of the day. And that's when I start, employing people to stand there for me. So eventually I got off the corner, and I ended up getting crack houses. I had I had two. I had three. And the horrible thing about the crack houses is I don't believe it was one that I had with nothing horrible happen in it. So yeah, I felt real guilty about a lot of things that happened when I had crack houses. People got killed in them, and it wasn't me per se that killed them, but they died at the hands of me. Had I never owned this crack house, these people probably still be living. Yeah, I've seen a lot of bad things happen with the crack world.
Did your industry kind of end based on something happening?
Okay. No, it kind of ended. It kind of ended with me going to prison. I graduated from crack houses, from selling rocks I went from selling rocks to having crack houses that sold rocks, and it just wasn't enough. It's never enough. I bought my very first house when I was 21, first mortgage. And it was kind of tough having to maintain that kind of lifestyle with selling rocks. So I graduated from selling rocks to selling bigger quantities of drugs. And with bigger quantity of drugs came more richer people. I met a Chaldean who wanted more than I can furnish. So I had to get it from other places, and I had to meet him, and I had to take chances on dealing with him, and it just got bigger and bigger. And one day, he got caught.
Hi, I know that you're enjoying the podcast so far, and thank you for tuning in. I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Kimberly Johnson. I am your host and CEO of Prodigal Sons Academy, where we help men become financially independent after incarceration. We also provide services for their greatest supporters, their mothers, wives, aunts, girlfriends, and sisters. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to learn more about us, you can visit our website at prodigalsonsacademy.com. Please like, share, and subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs encouragement and inspiration. Now back to the podcast.
The police came to his house and knocked on the door. He let him in, and they told him, we had you on camera selling one of our informants some drugs. Do you have any here? He lived in the house with his family. He said yes. So he gave it to him. Why, I don't know. This is what was in my transcripts. And he went on to say, they asked him, well, where do you get your drugs from? He said, well, I get my drugs from a guy named Curt that lives in Detroit. They set up a sting where people coming by for me. And that's how I got caught.
Wow.
And it wasn't the first time. I think I got caught once before. I kind of skipped a whole lot. When I was selling rocks, I was tired, and I had enlisted for the Army, the U.S. Army. I was going to the Army, and I got caught on the corner. They raided a house that I was at, and it wasn't my house, but I was there. And the warrant for me, because I guess somebody told them that little Curt be on the corner. So they raided the house. I went to jail, and I got a possession charge. So the judge dismissed it because he knew I was going to the Army. Once he dismissed it and I got back on the street, I never went to the Army. So the same police pulled up on me again. It was like, I thought you was going to the Army. So the next time we catch you out here, if you ain't got nothing, we're going to give you something. So we're going to fast forward back to when the informant told on me. That was the second offense. So when you get caught with a second offense in Detroit, it's double penalty. The amount that I got caught with carried a 20 to 30-year sentence. So it was double. It was 40 to 60.
That's great.
When I was convicted, I ended up with 21 to 60.
Oh my gosh.
And that was in 1999. So 4 years into being in prison, the drug laws changed, which made me eligible for parole 10 years early. Like I said, I'm always diligent on if I see it, I can do it. I've seen a lot of people fighting their own cases. So it was a reason to get out of the cell, and it was a reason to learn. So I ended up going to the law library every day, and I learned how to litigate.
Wow.
So I filed my own motions. I filed my own paperwork. I even attempted to sue the prison complex. Yeah, that it was just pastime. It was so concerning that the warden came all the way to the unit and wanted to know who I was.
Wow. Okay, you became famous.
Yeah. So they ended up riding me to a different prison anyway. I learned how to litigate. So prison wasn't all that bad. I was in prison with, I think, 32 certificates.
You're kidding. Really? Okay, now that's really changing your life. That's really transformation. You made it
Yeah.
worth your while.
Yeah, I did. I stayed busy. I was a barber, a cook, um, and I was obsessed with lifting weights. I worked out a lot. So
So
that
how
was
long were you there then total? How long?
I was there 11 years and 10 months.
Okay, so almost 12 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just go back now. I'm thinking about your mom because I'm a mother. I have a 26-year-old. How did she react to you going to jail or prison? I mean, because you went twice.
Yeah, it was kind of detrimental to her, kind of tore her apart. But I believe deep down in my heart that she felt she'd rather for prison to have me than death. So, in some sense, my opinion is she felt relieved that I'm still alive, because I got shot when I was 21 for one of the cars. I love cars, so that was one of the things that I bought when I sold drugs. I bought cars. I mean, still to this day, I got 6 or 7. I just love cars for some reason. So somebody attempted to carjack me on Mother's Day, 1994, and they shot 5 times for a car that I, yeah.
That's a terrible Mother's Day. I know your
Yeah,
mom was like, "You're where? What?" I mean, I'm sure she got the call. I
yeah,
can't even imagine.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that was kind of scary for her. So I believe she felt she'd rather see me in prison than to see me go through that again. Because I stayed in the hospital for a whole year recovering.
Oh my God. So you almost
Yeah.
died?
Yes, absolutely.
That's devastating. Wow, you've been through a lot.
Indeed.
As a parent of having someone who's been incarcerated, you actually are so stressed because you know the life that they're living. So every time a siren goes off, you're trying to figure out, I hope that's not my child. So it's almost like when they are incarcerated, you're almost like, well, I know they probably aren't having the best life in there, but at least I know where they are.
If she's watching the news and something happens on the east side of Detroit, are you at home?
Mhm.
She'll give me a call. You're not on the east side, are you? No, I'm not on the east.
Yep. You send a text, they don't text back. You like, oh Lord, what's going on?
Right.
See, there was something that you said in your bio that caught my eye. You said that ambition without two things led you to a life of crime. And you said that was skills and mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to elaborate on that? Just that philosophy?
If you don't have guidance or skills and you're mimicking what you see other people do, you don't know the consequences or the ins and outs of it. So if you try it and you do it wrong, that one try can be the end. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You can learn from it, but it could possibly be the last time that you try it. So skill and mentorship is crucial in being ambitious.
Mhm. Yeah, it kind of gives you a framework, kind of gives you guidance so that you don't go outside the borders with what you think you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, we definitely
you need a plan for sure.
need a plan. So you come out, and the first thing that you do is go into real estate. Like, how do you maneuver?
I always, I always had this desire for. That's why I bought my first property at 21. For some reason, I always just love houses. I love the. It's no house. It's nothing I can do to a house. If I see a house that nobody want to live in, I can bring that house back to life. For some reason, I just was fascinated, and I believe I can attribute that to being a kid and building clubhouses and walking vacant houses. Every time a house was vacant, I used to just walk through them, and I just built a love for houses, and I just love the way that they look. This one looked different than that one. This one, I learned the names of them. I know the different builds, the different constructions. So I think I used to be in garages. I don't know what it was about structure, but I just loved it. So I always been into real estate in my head, but I never was old enough to own or buy it. I never built or did any work on it until I was probably when I first moved in the house, when I moved out of my mother's house. I did that house. I painted it. I put the carpet down. I did everything myself. And that was the first time that I had hands on. So I went on to using those or practicing with the crack houses. Yeah.
Okay.
I used to, people will come in there and be like, is this a crack house or somebody live? Yeah.
Wait a minute,
Was,
I didn't even think about your crack houses. You bought your crack
yes.
houses? Oh, okay.
It was a company called Remco that used to rent to anybody. So I used to rent them, and I had a few of them, and Remco went out of business.
Oh.
So everybody was renting down to, because Remco did like a rent to buy program, and you never knew who was renting to buy or who was just renting. So I told them I was renting to buy mine, and I was almost done. So I ended up owning them, but I did the wrong thing with them. I sold drugs at them. Yep. So yep. Fast forward to prison. When I went to prison, I was trying to study for my real estate license, and it was just mumble jumble to me. I was like, I know all this. I don't feel like I should be reading this. I know it already. So when I got out, it was my plan, definitely my plan. I came home with all kind of real estate books, and I think what really made me interested in real estate was I read a lot of James Patterson and Dean Koontz books when I was in prison. And I think, I don't know which book it was, but one of them was like, there's two things in life people are always going to need, and it's food and shelter. So those were the two things that I perfected. I'm a perfect cook, and I'm a landlord. So I can always eat because I can do both of those things, and I can always provide. So I kept that in my head. And when I started studying the real estate world and what it was about and how you can, and they said a lot in real estate and learning about real estate is how to own properties with, they call OPP, other people's money, and OPM.
Okay.
And I was, that don't sound right to me.
Mm.
I want to do it a different way. So when I came home, in order to profit the quickest, I know from my experience, you have to own it. It's got to be yours. Otherwise, you're doing all this work to give somebody else the benefits. So if you got a mortgage on this house and you're renting it out, then you're renting it out to pay this mortgage. You may get a little back, but you're not gonna get a lot. So my plan was, my thought was, how can I get this property and get 100% profit. I gotta own it. So it took me back to the Remco days. How can I own this property? Tax foreclosures.
Okay.
So I studied the tax foreclosures. So every year, the city of Detroit has a tax auction. One is in September, one is going on right now. One is in September and one is October. The one in September, the bid starts off at whatever the person lost the house for. So if they're 3 years behind and they owe $3,700, the bid starts at $3,700. If the house doesn't sell, it goes to the October auction, where the bid starts at $500.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So I always waited on. So it's a lot more money now. It was $1,500 to bid on one property, and $3,500 to bid on multiple. Now it's like $5,000 to bid on one, and maybe $10,000 to bid on multiple. When I was doing it, it was cheaper. Mm-hmm. So let's fast forward to let's rewind to when I paroled. When I paroled, I really didn't jump right into real estate. I went to truck driving school, got my CDL Class A license. I signed up for talent acquisition team for Chrysler before I started truck driving school. And when I was driving the truck, I got an alert from Chrysler saying that they had some positions open. So I pulled over on the truck and I applied for them. They called me for Belvedere, Illinois, Toledo, and Trenton. So I got hired for all three of those spots and just needed to pick one. So I picked Trenton. So I put the truck driving school thing to the side and I went to work at Chrysler. When I was working at Chrysler, I ended up working next to a guy with the same name as mine.
No way.
Yeah, all these things was like God just put them all in line for me. So one day, me and him was talking. He's probably 5 years older than me, and we was talking, and he was telling me he had to evict somebody, and I was like, "Oh, you own the property?" He said, "Yeah, I got about 4 or 5 of them. I get them from the tax auction." Mm-hmm. So he showed me. When he did it, I signed up. I got my very first house. And he came and showed me how to do the plumbing. That's one thing I didn't know how to do was plumbing. He came and showed me how to do the plumbing. So I rented that first house out. And then I just got addicted. So every single tax auction, I was in the auction. Wow. So okay. One year I might get 2. Next year I might get 3.
So wait, let me back up. So when you got out, where did all your money come from? Like you got enough capital to go out and grab, right? So tell me about the money. Because a lot of the people that are going to be watching this video are going to be like, okay, I would love to do that, but I don't have no money.
Nobody would ever believe it. I would have to show it to you. And I just might be able to. So in prison, and this is not staged. This happened just to be near me. So in prison, I probably went to like 12 different prisons. They transferred me around and around. They bounced me around because I was a block rep, which means block rep is like I represented the inmates. So I go to meetings and I go back and tell the inmates in meeting, like I ran. Like if you want to order something from the store, if you want to buy shoes, clothes, I go from cell to cell with the catalogs. I was the block rep. I represented the block, every prison I went to. So I happened to have inside information that they were getting rid of the tobacco. Okay. So they were going to wean it out. They was going to sell a little at a time until people didn't have to have it no more. But to me, it was the skill kicked in from me being in the street. Like, wait a minute, when this tobacco is gone, it's going to be gold if I still got it.
Okay.
So I ran a store. I sold cookies, cakes, and tobacco. And I sent everybody to the store to buy tobacco before they took it. And I hid it in the ground in the ceiling, everywhere. It's probably still there. So yeah, so every month you can only have $1,500 in your account before they'll charge you rent. So every month before they charge me rent, I buy a $500 bond. And these are actual bonds that I bought from prison. So I came home from prison with $11,000.
Look at you. Oh my gosh.
Each one of these represent $500. And this is not staged. And every time they got hip to me, they would ride me out. And this is from prison. I made this. This is a photo album. And I made this, and I can't. So this is the capital that I started with.
I see. Oh, there's some real money. Okay.
Yeah. So I came home with this money, and I started with that. I always had it. So once they got hip to me, they would ride me out. They was like, if we take him away from it, then he won't have it. But I had already, the damage was already done. I had enough to come home with.
That's amazing. So I'm stupid. Okay, so I always thought that the currency in prison would be non-actual money. So
I touched it. I never touched money. It went straight to my account. So I would have to fill out like a what do we call it? I would have to fill out like a kite and say I want to buy a $500 bond. And the council would call you out and you have to sign it, and then they'll buy it for you. They will never give you the physical bond. They'll give you a copy of it. That's the copy of it. The rest of it they kept in the front office, I guess.
but I'm thinking when you're doing your sales between inmate to inmate.
So the way that went is you have your people send money to my account.
Oh, like family at home.
Yeah, and this is how I got. This is how they got hip to me. They was like, you don't have people in Owasso. You don't have people in, Mount Pleasant. This is called me out. He was like, I have to give it to you. You want a hell of an entrepreneur. I don't know what you're selling, but you're not gonna sell it here no more. He was like, I never seen nobody. He had this in front of him. He was like, this actual thing. He said, I'd never seen nobody so meticulous about crime. And he was like, I can't even tell you what it is you're doing. All I know is I don't want you to do it here. So he sent me to another prison. But the harm was already done. I was already done. I was at the end of my bid anyway.
All right. So you were doing this from prison to prison to prison until they would stop you and move you, kind of thing?
From day one, when I went to prison, 7 block, I was in quarantine. And quarantine is Jackson. It's like a sales, as far as you can see it. So I happened to be on what they call base, the lowest cell. And when they ride people in from different cities, like these people been in the county jail without cigarettes forever, but they sold them on the store list where I was at. So the first thing they'd do is like, and I was like, nah, I don't. But next time somebody do that, I'm gonna make sure I got it. So that's when it started. When they was riding in, and people kept asking for a cigarette is $3. Okay, yeah, I can do this bit for free.
Just brilliant.
Yeah. I don't know if you call it brilliant, but it's just living off the land.
You figure out a system in your environment and make it work. Yeah, figure out what the need is. That was like, I was thinking ahead. That was really thinking ahead.
I always say I can sell ice to an Eskimo.
I believe you could. I do. All right, so that's where your capital came from. Okay, I was wondering, like, how do you just throw money at these houses, at these auctions and stuff?
And like I said, I always got in an auction where the bid started off at 500. Mm-hmm. So I bought many of my properties. I bought under $3,000, under $5,000. Mm-hmm. Some of these houses were vacant. Some of them were occupied. Mm-hmm. I even bought a bar.
Wow.
I bought a commercial building. Yeah. Bought a commercial building. It was vacant, and right now I'm using it as a event hall.
Okay. Is that in Detroit as well?
Yep.
Okay. So that was like somebody that business wasn't going well and they foreclosed and you were able to grab it.
They lost it to taxes. I don't know how they lost it, but I think it was lost and going from, I think the parent might have died and the kids had it. And the kids used it as long as they could without spending no money on it. And then they just walked away from it.
Mm. So that was just you getting something at the right time.
Yes.
Yeah. So how many houses do you own right now?
Not
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, and they're all rental properties?
every single one of them.
And they're all occupied?
They're all occupied.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations. I mean, you can own a house, you still got to get tenants, you know?
Yeah. And it's a job. I stay in and out of eviction court, but right now everything seems to be flowing pretty fine, so I'm good.
Okay, good. So how much would you say like you've had to invest into flipping them? Because I'm assuming that all of them are not in great condition.
90% of them wasn't. When I go into these properties, I automatically assume that they're going to need furnace and hot water tanks. And my very first property, they got this place called Habitat for Humanity, where it's like a resale shop where people, just donate stuff to that they didn't want. They had old paint, they had old furnishings, And I started my very first house off with donated paint. I mixed my own paint. I don't like that color. I put this with that. You know what I mean? Like $5 gallons of paint. So my very first properties, I just did them like I did the crack houses. I made them look presentable, clean, and comfortable. And they worked. All the way up until me having an account with Home Depot. So now everything is updated and more, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. So
ceramic tile and backsplashes and tearing walls down and opening up the living room to the kitchen. And as I grew, every time somebody move out, I'll go back and do what I'm doing now.
mm-hmm. Okay, so like, what's a ballpark? Like, if someone wanted to go and get one of the auction houses in October when it's at its lowest, and they grab it up, and yeah, they plan on probably doing all of the basics. Like, there's no point in buying a house that's going to need electrical and plumbing and a new roof and windows in the next year because that's just a lot of money. So I'm thinking if somebody wanted to go in and it's like ready like to fall apart, like how much money are they going to spend on getting it up to speed framework wise?
Probably upwards of $10,000 if they're not doing predominantly all of the work themselves. I did probably 75 to 80% of the work myself. That's what saved me a lot of money.
So if you're a handyman, you know how to do stuff, it might be about half that.
Yep.
Okay.
Because the majority of it is going to be material. If you can cut corners on material and do the labor yourself, you're winning. Mm-hmm. It's resale shops. It's people always selling something. If you hit Craigslist, I can find anything. Mm-hmm. Marketplace, offer up. I'm gonna find it.
Okay. So I'm just trying to think though, because you've done this 9 times, not including then you got the lounge. And was there a lot of work for the lounge? If someone's thinking about commercial property, because I would think, I guess, if you don't want to deal with tenants, wouldn't you say going for like a commercial property would be like?
I spent probably 10 times much as 10,000 in the commercial building.
Oh,
it was a vacant building. It didn't have nothing. Brought the whole life back to it, from the basement to the top. So I gave it the electrical, the plumbing, the walls. I did the whole 9 yards. So I spent, I would say 70,000 to 80,000 in that building.
oh my goodness. And how long have you had that one?
think I won that one in the auction in 2015 or 14.
Okay, so 7, 8 years you have that one. So have you got your money back?
Out of the building, no.
No. Okay, so
That had to pay for itself, but the properties pay for it.
right. Yeah, I mean it's probably wonderful not having a mortgage.
Right.
You get 100% of what you get.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Out of property taxes, you gotta pay those.
Oh yeah. So what about working with hard money lenders? Do you recommend that?
Hard money lenders are going to hit you across the head with 10 times more interest than a bank or a credit union.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice would be to take a loan against something that you already have that's paid for if you're going to borrow money. Or if you borrow money from a hard lender, have intentions on paying it back before the time expires. So if you know you can get it right back to them, then take it. But if you can't, you're going to pay for it twice and you still lose.
So can you explain a little bit about what a hard money lender is to everyone if they don't know? Like when would you want to use one?
A hard money lender, I was looking at a co-op and for a Airbnb, and they wanted 100,000 cash for the co-op. They didn't want you to have a mortgage on it. You wanted to pay cash for it. So I sought out hard money lenders. Hard money lenders are people who, like you and I, who just got money to loan you that's sitting in their account, and they're going to give you the cash up front, but they're going to charge you for that 100,000. You may pay 140, maybe 150,000, and they're going to give you like a small window of time to pay it back. Versus a conventional loan or FHA loan where you got 30 years, 15 years, 10 years to pay it back. They want it back in 60 months, 72 months.
Okay. Right, right. And so being able to pay back that amount with interest, doesn't that mean that you have to do a fix and flip and sell
Quick.
quick?
If you plan, if you plan on being there for a long time, then if you don't plan on being able to pay that money back, then you're gonna lose.
Okay. So you wouldn't do a fix and hold with a hard money lender because you couldn't.
Nah, I don't flip. All mine is for the long run, so I would have probably found another way to give that 100,000 back had I took it. Only reason why I even thought of a hard money lender is because they didn't do mortgages on co-ops. So I probably would have ended up borrowing the money against one of the properties that I already had and getting the hard money lender their money back.
Right. So you are talking about refinancing one of your existing properties, taking the
So,
equity out of that house and putting it into another house.
something that has equity, yep.
Okay. All right. So a person that's just starting out, they don't have no house. They don't have no property. So you're saying go out, get the auction house, and then you need to have money to be able to fix it up. Like you can't just, when people talk about OPM, they are really talking about getting a loan to do what you need to do and paying the loan back over time.
The cash is fantastic, but credit is better. You can get nowhere without having good credit. So if you don't have any money, then you should probably work on your credit. I would offer that advice to anybody. I would offer that before even investing in a house. Don't take money and buy on a house, spend it on a house, spend it on building your credit. That way, when you get the house, you can borrow money to fix it up.
Mhm. Mhm.
So credit
Credit is number one.
Yeah.
You know, we're often taught, oh, no, don't. Credit is terrible. You don't want debt. You don't want debt. But that OPM that's a gem. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
As long as your credit is earning you money, it's good credit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's another one of the things that I focused on was building my credit. Yeah. I never had valid driver's license and I never had a good credit score. So those were one of the things that I geared towards. And that's why I got a commercial A license. I said, I'm gonna get a license, I'm gonna get the best license you can have. So I got doubles, triples, hazmat. I can do it all. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question going back now. You came out and you were able to get a job with Chrysler. You know, a lot of returning citizens find it very difficult to find employment. So on your record, was that considered felonies?
Definitely a felon.
Okay.
So I don't know what the employer looks for as far as conviction wise. I don't, because you know, if I did 12 years, then it's been 10 years since I've been convicted. Now I just came home, but my conviction is 10 years old.
Right.
So they play a key role in a person who was convicted 2 years ago and only did 2 years in prison. And then if the employer is looking how old that history is, it's only 2 years old. So I don't know if they're looking for that or if they're looking for, per se, a violent crime versus a non-violent. But of the 32 certificates that I took, job training was one. And one of the things I remember in job training was when you fill out an application, never discuss your crime. If they ask you were you convicted of a felon, absolutely, because they're going to find out anyway. But if they ask you to elaborate, just cite the statute that you was convicted under and let them do the legwork. And that's what I did. So I don't know if my conviction being older than 10 years worked for me or the fact that I was honest and my crime was nonviolent. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I would never suggest that you let that dissuade you from trying. If you get turned down, you have the liberty of calling and asking the reason. And that way, the next time you fill out an application, you'll know what to say or do.
Yeah, you're prepared. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So with that same mindset of having that scar on your record, whether it's old or something more recent, housing is also another issue for returning citizens. There are just landlords out there that just simply will not rent to people who have records. And I don't, obviously, that's not the case with everybody, but I mean, I've known people that will try to cut around that by finding a significant other that has credit and they just move in with them. But if you want to be an independent man, like, how do you feel about that? I mean, there's so many landlords that I hear about that just won't even bother if they know that you have a criminal record. How do you feel about that? And how does someone kind of work around that issue as a
Well,
landlord yourself?
I'm going to have to admit to you that I have one male tenant and he's 80 years old. If a single man applied for fill out application to rent one of my properties, I don't know that I would discriminate if he had the employment and he had everything, all his ducks in a row. I don't think that I would discriminate. But the majority of my tenants are women with kids, and they seem to be the only ones that apply. I think men got an ego where they'll probably send the lady to do it versus them doing it. I don't know if it's because they don't have their things together or if they think the woman is stand a better chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to say, but I think there is just a fear that it won't work.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I would assume that they've tried or they've heard about folks that have tried and it just didn't work out. So, like you said, they put the woman in front.
Yeah.
But you said you have one.
One male tenant, and he's 80 years old.
And he's 80.
Yeah.
That's something.
And yeah.
So, okay, so you're saying he's employed. You said he has his ducks in a row. What does that mean exactly?
That means that I don't do credit checks. A lot of people do. So I don't do background checks or credit checks. I'm my own management. I manage my own properties. I know it's a lot of work, but I manage my own. A lot of people want to do background checks. They're going to do credit checks. They're going to make sure that your income is 3 times as much as the rent. And that's the rule of thumb. If you rent a property, you need to make 3 times as much as whatever the rent is. If the rent is $1,100, you need to make $3,300 a month, period. So when I say ducks in a row, I mean those things.
So, okay, so no background check. That's
I don't.
You don't, but yeah.
They won't, but I don't.
Okay. So how does a person who has the criminal background, like how do you just keep trying until you find somebody that's saying, I don't care? And
I don't know that criminal history keeps you from renting a house. I don't think nobody looks for criminal history. Look for history of evictions, maybe bad credit score, which means that you're not likely to pay your bills. But as far as background check on being a criminal, I think apartments may do that. They may be looking to see if you're a sex offender and if you're registered, but I don't think that they care if you've been to prison or not.
that's with renting from a landlord who has a home as opposed to an apartment complex, though. Okay. I have a question for you though, because I'm realizing, with Prodigal Sons Academy, we want to help people who are returning citizens, and we just want to make sure that they have equal opportunity. We focus on housing, we focus on financial independence, but we want them to go about it in a more entrepreneurial way. So we try to teach them about real estate, teach them about options trading and different transportation services and rental services that they can do to make their own income without going through the channels of applying for a job and being rejected over and over. But as I'm looking at all these different organizations that are out there to help ex-offenders, I am noticing that there's a lot of programs out there that are really helpful. But I'm noticing one thing is that, like yourself, going to prison for this long period of time and all the skills that you're able to obtain while you're there versus a person who pops in and out of the community jail.
I think it's the mindset. You do a longer stint, you're more patient. You do a shorter stint, you're anxious. Because you just got here, you're ready to do. You got a plan when you sat there for a long time. You coming home with a plan. It's gonna be figured out. But if you pop in, you pop out, you don't have time to sit and think. So you're gonna come home and let people think for you. And they're gonna tell you go to Michigan Works. They're gonna send you to all these different places that they say can help you, but you're not patient enough to wait on the help. So it falls on the back of the person. So that person needs to exercise some patience and come up with a plan and not expect people to plan for them.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I can see where that makes sense. You need that time to really get your thoughts together, figure out how you got there in the first place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people are just ready to make the money. They want to go back to the kind of money that they had before,
Yeah.
which isn't always available.
Right.
I mean,
They're scared to evolve. They don't want to do, if they're used to selling lemons, they don't want to sell limes because I sell lemons. Why do I need to sell? I'm the best at selling lemons, but the world don't want lemons right now. They want limes. So you got to evolve, and they don't want to evolve. They want to do what they're known for doing because they know they can succeed at this. They're scared to fail at that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Curt, as opposed to Curtis, Curt, if you could go back to any age and speak to yourself and give yourself advice, what age would it be and what would you say?
Hmm. What age would it be? It probably would be post prison. It would probably be 25. I would probably tell myself, because, to be honest with you, at 25, when I went to prison, I was really tired. So I kind of got rescued, I always say, from the street because I was already tired. I was lazy about what I was doing. I wasn't cautious no more. So if I was to go back to an age, it would be 25, the year before I went to prison. What would I say to myself? I would say find a career, not a job.
Mhm. And what's the difference between the two for you?
A career will take care of you when you're a job is something that you're going to do just to get by.
Let's say it
So
again. A career will do what again?
take care of you when you retire. And a job is just a job. It's just something you do today and you get paid tomorrow. It's not going to take care of you when you retire. So my whole entrepreneur theory is I work hard for these years, like most people won't, so I can live the rest of my life like most people can't.
That's beautiful. Mhm. All right. My final closing question would be, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Millionaire. Everybody wants to be a millionaire.
Right.
Retired, out of the plant. I don't want to do this plant thing no more. Every day I think like I see people 60 years old um, getting up out of their bed to come and work on the line. Some are 18-year-olds should do. So my whole perspective on life is to live financially free. And that's where I want to be in 10 years, 5 years from now. I want to be financially free. I don't want to struggle for nothing. I only want to pay utilities. Everything paid itself.
Amen to that. Oh, that sounds wonderful. Yeah, I think we're all trying to get to that financial freedom. And nowadays, people are doing it younger and younger and younger and younger.
They are. Yeah.
No one should be able to tell you at 65 you can now relax.
Absolutely. But if you don't put those things in motion, you're not going to relax.
So, final word. Give advice to someone who is 25 and they've got that criminal background. They don't have no certificate, no degrees, no nothing. What's the first thing that they need to do if they want to go into real estate?
Get a good credit score. Get a good credit score. They need a plan, number one. Need a good credit score because money's going to come, money's going to go. If you hit the lottery tomorrow, you can take that money and buy a piece of property. But you can't do nothing with it because you have no more money coming in. You need that good credit score in order to borrow money. If you want to receive 100% of your profit, this house has to be paid for. So I would say get a good credit score and everything else going to fall in place.
I agree with you that credit is important.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate everything that you shared. I mean, your story, your journey is amazing. I love the entrepreneurial spirit that you have that carried you from a child doing a paper route. Even in prison, you were hustling.
Yeah,
You had a plan when you got out, not only a plan, but resources. You didn't
absolutely.
come out empty handed. You didn't waste no time wherever you were. And I just think that's a beautiful thing. And to see where you are now, like you said, a respected property investor, I think that's awesome. You're doing your thing. And I think you're going to hit those goals that you have, I hope, within the next couple of years. We don't need to wait for 5 years. But thank you so much for your time. And I know that our viewers are going to enjoy this, the journey that you had. And I hope that they'll be inspired. And we will definitely be in touch with you again because we would love to see how you're coming along. So, but thank you again.
Thanks for having me.